On their way, he explained that he wanted her to run the pregnancy test again and also go for ultrasound, urine analysis, and if possible, pelvic examination. And if it wasn't pregnancy, a scan will pick up whatever it is that is presenting pregnancy symptoms in her system. And if a scan can't, they will do a biopsy if that is needed. She looked at him, frightened by all the names he was rattling off. Is it not just this tiredness and dizziness? Okay, there was a little nausea, but it hasn't gotten to all the seriousness he was showing now. But she relaxed because she felt safe with him, and knowing he was going to be there with her through it all made it easier. She felt grateful to this kind man. After the blood test, they were presented with the result, and it read negative. Pamela looked at Dr. Eddie, though she was not surprised at the result, but she was worried by the look on his face. Even though she had experienced a moment doubt as a result of that one time she nearly went through with Kelvin, and it was more than 2 months ago. Kelvin. How she forgets. And each time she remembers, her heart always bleeds, and she doesn't know why she keeps fretting for someone who has shown he doesn't care about her. Why can't her heart forget? But he is not her priority now. When the lab attendant stepped out, she turned to Dr. Eddie and asked him if there was a problem, because his countenance was not as bright as she would have thought at the result that they had. But then, there lies the issue of his own hospital lab, giving a wrong diagnosis. But she believed there must be a tangible explanation to that previous error. Could that be what is bothering him? She wondered. When he wasn't forthcoming with an answer to her question, she tapped him gently on his arm, and that seemed to have brought him back. He looked at her and apologized for his absent-mindedness. He went on to apologize profusely for the wrong diagnosis from him and his staff, and he was going to get to the bottom of it when he gets back to the hospital. He further requested that she undergoes further tests, since they were here already. He will take care of the bills as part of his apology, because he can't imagine the panic he would have put her through in the few hours before now. And what if they didn't seek for a second opinion? She stopped him though with a laugh, taking hold of his hands. She smiled and told him she's okay, and she knows it was an honest mistake on his part. And if it will make him feel better, she will undergo any test he fancied. He looked at her gratefully and told her to follow him. They went back to the reception. He requested for the forms. When she had filled the form with his guidance, they submitted and waited for when their names would be called. It was such a big laboratory that they are used only on recommendations. If she had not been here with Dr. Eddie, they would not have attended to her. But you need hospital letter-headed recommendations to be attended to. While they waited, she took out her phone to call her sister. But when she opened the phone, there were already missed calls from her sister. So she called her back immediately. Her sister picked her the first ring, but it turned out to be her mom who picked it. What happened? Why haven't you returned? What did the results say? Hope it is not bad. Why, Mama? Pamela interrupted her endless questions, feeling sorry for not calling earlier. The result is not yet out, but I'm still with Uncle Eddie. But we will soon be on our way, she replied, trying to assuage her fears. Her mom calmed down when Pamela was with Dr. Eddie. But what kind of test takes so much time since yesterday? And you left the house this morning again. You are not stressing yourself, her mom still queried. Pamela smiled, feeling her mom's love through all the endless questions. She calmly told her that Dr. Eddie brought her to Q Labs because he doesn't have the equipment for the test he wanted her to take. When she was sure her mom was calm, she ended the call with a promise to be home soon. As she turned to go back inside, she saw Dr. Eddie looking for her. She went to him and they both went back inside because her name had been called. She went through all the procedures he enlisted for her. A week after, she got a call from Dr. Eddie. He told her the results of the test were ready. She was preparing. Anxiety crept upon her, but she still hopes the tests all come out clean. Her sister Vivian came into the room while she was still getting ready, and after watching her in silence for a few minutes, said, "You will be fine. It was just stress, so no need for you to panic." I believe Uncle Eddie was just trying to be thorough. You know how meticulous he can be. So please just relax, okay? This time, she came to hold her sister by the shoulders. Both of them stood, looking at each other through the mirror, their closeness undeniable. Pamela leaned back on her sister, drawing strength for a moment, missing her already. She remembered when they received the letter for her admission to study medicine and surgery in one of the most prestigious universities in Europe and the accompanying full scholarship. Vivian had taken the letter to where their father was lying down and had laid it on his chest with tears streaming down her face, and in a triumphant voice she said, "This is in addition to Pamela's, who will be graduating with honors next year, a degree in aerospace engineering. We are gradually getting there, Papa, so remain strong because soon you are getting up from that position." Her dad was smiling with tears as well. You could see the pride, the joy, the fulfillment in his eyes as he looked at his treasures, coming into full womanhood with purpose and accomplishments. The house that day was filled with so much joy, and there was this air of possibility that hung thick around them, like they can do anything and nothing will be able to stop them. It was a big difference when she got her admission because the fear of how to proceed was damping the joy of the news of her admission brought. But now, with her about to round up and her sister getting the full scholarship, the last two also rounding up with secondary school, when she looks at her mom now, she was beginning to regain her robust looks and cheerfulness. And again, the preparation for her travels has been going successfully, with their dad selling a portion of his land to facilitate the movement. So now, with only weeks before she travels, Pamela felt melancholic, even though it was something they had dreamed about for years. Because while they were young, most nights they stay awake, talking about it and dreaming of the faraway land. Now it is a reality, and she doesn't know if she should cry or smile. She and her sister Vivian had been the best of friends, even though they had had their small skirmishes, but they had had each other's back for all their lives. And apart from the few months she spent at school, they had never really been apart. And now, her sister was going thousands of miles away for 7, possibly more years without a visit. Unless there was a miracle that can take them to her or bring her to them before she runs up her schooling. She has been trying to go about it one day at a time, but now the reality was becoming too real to be ignored. But she tried hard to control her tears, as she doesn't want to open up a tap now that she was going out. So she breathed out and smiled through the little tears that had escaped. Vivian must have felt her emotions too, because she had tears in her eyes as well. She flicked her hands off playfully and rounded up her dressing, telling Vivian not to delay her any longer. "Please go. Next time I will not be a cheerleader again. See this one, I was trying to help." Vivian smiled and replied her lightheartedly as she stepped out of the room, wiping the tears from her eyes. When Pamela got to the parlor, she met Dr. Eddie chatting with her father, both of them laughing at something the other said. She stood at the doorway, admiring the two men who had taught her most of what she holds dear today, and counted herself lucky. She chuckled as she entered the sitting room, greeting Dr. Eddie as he stood up to give her a hug. "Uncle, you would have waited for me at the hospital. I was about to step out," Pamela said as she hugged him back. "Well, I needed an excuse to come see this stubborn man you call a father." He released her, smiling at her dad affectionately. Her dad just chuckled, used to his friend's banter. They spent a few moments talking before Pamela and the doctor took their leave. When they got to the lab, the anxiety returned, and this time with more force than she felt at home. She tried to calm her nerves by telling herself that all was well. After all, she was already feeling better. But that pep talk did little, if anything at all, to calm her down. Dr. Eddie switched off the ignition and told her that she had nothing to be afraid of. The tests were just formalities he felt she needed as a young girl coming into full womanhood. So she should calm down so they can go get the result. He waited for her in the car, and when she returned with the envelope unopened, he asked her why a lab attendant didn't explain anything for her, as was their custom. But Pamela told him she declined when they offered, and they let her go when she told them she was taking the results to her personal doctor. He nodded and collected the big envelope from her as she entered the vehicle. He told her he will open them when they get back to his office, or would she rather prefer driving straight home? She chose the hospital and she wants to know whatever was hidden inside that monstrous envelope, be it good or bad, before telling her family. When he opened the first envelope as they got back, he smiled after scanning through. You have a little fever, but that can be taken care of. He continued until he got to a point and frowned. She immediately became alert as she saw the look of worry spread across his face. Uncle, what is the matter? What does it say? She queried him. He showed her a piece of paper with diagrams and words beyond her field, so she looked at him for explanation. He told her this was a result from her HVS, and even though nothing was conclusive, he doesn't like the rise in certain cells found in her fallopian tube. So she asked him what they meant and if further tests were required. He thought about it for a moment and replied, there is not much for concern with the present result alone, but combined with your symptoms earlier, I don't want to overlook anything. The test that will give me rest from my suspicion is a bit of an invasive process. More than the HVS, Pamela interrupted, trying to make it light-hearted, but one could tell her worry. He smiled sadly and said yes. I know I may be doing too much for what may be nothing, Dr. Eddy continued, but after the death of my younger sister, I do not take anything for granted again. I would rather you go through this less painful part, and we found nothing, than letting it get to a stage where the pain and loss will be unmanageable. Pamela, now not trying to hide her fear, asked him to be honest with her. After all, it was her body and her life that they were discussing here. That is true, the doctor said. He cleared his throat and explained what his suspicions were and what informed his stance on it. After his explanation, Pamela felt satisfied and told him that she was ready for whatever was needed to be done. But was it necessary to inform her parents? Uncle said no, as she is not a minor and the procedure won't take more than a few minutes, and he doesn't want to worry them unnecessarily. So when they went back to Q Lab, thankfully there was not much crowd. So in about an hour or so, they were through, and Dr. Eddy was driving her home. At their gate, he told her he would go back for the result in 48 hours, and then call her to the hospital. She should rest as much as possible, and to keep the site of the incision clean. Pamela thanked him for his care and attention. When she got back, she told her parents that the results were all clear, but one was not ready. Uncle will pick it up in 2 days' time. Here, her mother exclaimed. What is with all these tests on top tiredness and nausea? Malaria can cause all these things now. And you said malaria was found in one of the tests, right? Yes, ma, Pamela said, but went further to explain. Uncle said he was just being careful and thorough, and there is no harm in covering all the bases. Vivian came in at that time and replied that the doctor was right. Every young woman coming to a certain age needs to run thorough medical examinations once in a while, so she will not be caught unaware if anything starts happening in her body. And no doctor should take for granted the health of his patient. Being careful and thorough can save a lot of lives. Yes, Dr. Vivian, Pamela and her mother exclaimed, and they all busted out in laughter. As they were getting ready for bed, Vivian asked Pamela what kind of test did she do that was taking this much time. Pamela explained what happened and that they went back for biopsy that day. Wait, biopsy? Vivian asked. What did he say was his suspicion? Pamela shrugged and said, cancer. But he wasn't sure. Like he said, he just wanted to rule it out. Vivian was staring at her sister like she had 7 heads. Did you just say cancer? She asked, almost screaming. Bring your voice down, please, before you wake everybody. Pamela hushed her. How can you be so casual about something like that? Vivian asked incredulously, her eyes popping out. How am I supposed to behave? Should I start wearing morning clothes, or maybe I should start wailing on top ordinary suspicion? Vivian, please, the matter never reached like that. Pamela told her sister, getting into bed. Vivian came to sit beside her, refusing to lie down. She held her sister's hand and said, I know how strong you can be, and I'm also aware that you're trying not to panic. But what are we going to do? What if the suspicions turned out to be true? Pamela got up angrily from the bed. This is why I didn't tell you from the beginning. I know how panicky my family can get. Yes, because we love each other, Vivian interjected. Pamela ignored her and continued. I don't accept the verdict of cancer. Even if it shows up, I will triumph over it, just like I have won over every hurdle in my way. Vivi, she called her, taking her hands, her voice softening. We are fighters. We don't give up. We always have each other's back, so there is enough strength to go round. Look at Papa. Look at how strong he has remained, despite everything life has thrown at him. Is it, Mama? We came from strength. We came from very strong stocks. We will not be broken. We will not be broken. We are the Babs, the beauty, brain, and strong sisters. Whatever that biopsy result will say, we will pull through. Vivian laid her head on her sister's chest as Pamela finished talking and laid back. They stayed like that for the longest of time, drawing strength from each other. But eventually they said their prayers and went to bed. 2 days later, Pamela was cooking with her mom when her phone rang and it was Dr. Eddie. He told her to come to the hospital. Vivian insisted on going with her this time. When he was ready for her, they went into his office and Pamela tried to read his face, but it was as blank as a sheet of paper. That in itself worried her, but she decided to let herself relax. Remembering her talk with her sister 2 days ago, when he eventually came around to discussing the result, he heaved a big sigh and told her there was hope. How do you mean, sir? Well, he paused, as if looking for a better way to see what he was about to say. And after a few seconds, Pamela blurted, Just say it, uncle. He signed again and said, Cancer cells were found in your ovaries. Pamela's heart dropped into her stomach, and that seemed to affect her hearing, because she was seeing Dr. Eddie's mouth moving, but she couldn't hear a thing he was saying. Could this be a symptom of cancer? She wondered absently, her body feeling as though it was detached from her mind. She felt a hard tap on her arms, and that brought her back together a little. She looked at Dr. Eddie and began to wonder when the two nurses came in. What happened? She asked, surprised at the look of panic on her sister's face. And how come she was lying down? After a while, she deduced she must have panicked and fainted when she heard the doctor's report. She was able to come down from the bed much later when she was sure she could stand by herself, and she came back to sit beside her sister. Pamela held her sister's hand when Vivian continued to look at her so worriedly. I am fine now, Pamela assured her. I am glad you are here with me, though. Vivian squeezed her hand and turned to the doctor. Uncle Eddie, what stage is the cancer? And is there hope? She asked. Dr. Eddie looked at them both and felt proud to be a part of their story, because he could remember them as little children. He knew what they had been through, but only wished they had reached out to him when their father had that accident. He only came back into the country 2 years after. Unfortunately, he met with the time when he went into crisis again, and thankfully he was able to pick up from there. So looking at them now as they are growing into strong, capable, beautiful women, he couldn't be more proud if he was their biological father. We are very lucky indeed to have discovered it when we did, he said. Ovarian cancer is very dangerous because it usually does not present with any symptoms until its late stages. So being able to detect it at this stage is a miracle in itself. The cancer is still in its developmental stages. It is still at the fallopian tube and just one tube at that. The ovaries has only slight changes from the cancer cells, so they can be saved, as well as the fallopian tube. All we need to do is start treatment immediately. Though it might mean she won't be at school this coming session. It won't take the whole year, but if she missed one semester, that automatically means the year is gone, he answered, responding to Vivian's question. Vivian sighed in relief and looked at her sister with tears streaming down her face. Pamela smiled and nodded, hearing her silent words. Pamela turned to their uncle and asked when they would start and how are they supposed to tell their parents. Reby thought about it for a moment and said, I would like to be the one who breaks the news to your parents. They will take it better if it is coming from me, and I will be in a better position to answer any questions they will have. We will start the treatment immediately after having the discussion, he replied. We will start the treatment immediately after, he replied, smiling at the strength and restraint they have shown so far. This journey will not be a very hard one, as long as they had each other like this, he thought to himself. After he answered their questions, he signed out from the hospital and took the girls home so that they can map out a treatment plan from today. He has a lot of calls and arrangements to make, as the oncologist in his staff has gone for his annual leave and he wouldn't want to cut his holiday short. He needs to consult with his gynecologist friend and see if he will be available. He will handle whatever else that is needed. He kept planning and mapping out in his head as he drove them home to tell his friend in a sickbed that his daughter had cancer. He prayed when they opened her up that what they would find would be exactly what was seen by the biopsy. He doesn't think his friend will be able to survive if anything should happen to any of his children, especially Ella. His children has been one of the major reasons he put through a spinal cord and brain injuries that has killed many. He was still recovering from one of the most recent surgeries to correct his spinal cord, and getting this bad news now. Dr. Eddie shook his head and held on to the hope that the cancer was at its early stages, just as the test has shown. If that is the case, then they have nothing to worry about. As they approached the compound, he concluded on how to go about breaking the news to them. When they went inside, Vivian and Pamela were all cheerful, and they gave their dad, who can now sit propped on a special chair, the fruits they got for him, with their mom demanding for her own. Pamela laughingly told her, as if he would not still give it to him, he is your husband, go and share with him. She ran out of the room laughing when her mom meant to swat her on the bum. The atmosphere was so lively that Dr. Eddie felt like a sadist for the news he bore. After they had eaten and were relaxing, Pamela's father called his friend and asked him what the matter was. Have they gotten the result of the test? He queried. Dr. Eddie looked at his friend and shook his head in amazement. You have never ceased to amaze me with your power of intuition. Well, yes, the result is out, and that is why I'm here. But I need you to be strong and promise you will bear it like a man. Pamela's dad weighed his friend's words and nodded. As long as there is a way out, then I can bear it, he replied. Dr. Eddie nodded, relieved that part of his burden has been taken care of. As he was about to speak, Pamela's mom walked in and sat down when her husband indicated that she should. He spoke to her first to brace her for whatever news the doctor had for them, and when he felt she was ready, he signaled for his friends to go ahead. First of all, I want to apologize to you people for the error that was committed at my hospital against Ella. I don't know if she told you about it. What error? Pamela's dad interjected. Well, the first time Pamela came to the hospital to conduct the test some weeks back, the other test she underwent didn't show anything that would account for her symptoms. So I suggested she gives us another blood so we could conduct pregnancy tests. Pregnancy? Her mother shouted. But Dr. Eddie raised his hand to calm her down and pleaded to be allowed to explain fully. They both nodded and told him to go ahead, so he continued. The pregnancy test was for formality's sake because she assured me there was no need for that. But I needed to clear every doubt so I can know what to do next. Okay, that is not bad, her father said, listening intently. But the result came out positive. What? They both shouted this time. Dr. Eddie quickly said, No, she's not pregnant. I am only trying to explain why I need to tender an apology to you both, because I have explained to her. Oh, okay, continue please. So when I saw the positive, I went back to supervise the test again, and twice it came out the same. But Pamela was sure she wasn't pregnant. That was when I decided to use the best lab facility around, and the result came out negative. So I had to go back and investigate what went wrong in my own lab. And after much findings, we discovered that her blood sample was interchanged mistakenly with that of another patient who was actually pregnant. And we were only able to know this because the patient, after she had gone elsewhere to conduct another test, when her symptoms persisted, she threatened to sue us, which was well within her right. But we later came to an understanding, and she was adequately compensated after we explained our error to her and her husband. Pamela has forgiven me and my hospital, but I felt I needed to let you know as my best friend. Pamela's dad smiled and shook his friend's hand. Is this why you're looking so gloomy? There is no problem. There was no harm done. I'm just glad the other person sought for second opinion immediately, which helped to resolve the matter. Imagine if she had taken your negative meanwhile she was pregnant. So don't worry, humans are prone to error. No one is above mistake. But Dr. Eddie indicated that he was not done yet. So Pamela's dad sat back to allow him to continue. When I saw that most of the test results were not enough to explain her symptoms, I decided that I would go further, just to eliminate every possibility. He paused and looked at his friend. Remember Ife, my little sister? He asked, his voice catching on an emotion. Pamela's dad nodded, remembering how her life was cut short as a result of one test that was overlooked. He then understood why his friend was being so thorough with his daughter, and the weight of gratitude that fell on him was immeasurable. He looked at his friend and asked solemnly, Please, what did you find out about my daughter? We had to do biopsy after the HVS, that is high vaginal swab, result showed some indications, and the biopsy came out positive for cancer cells. But he was quick to add, we caught the cancer at its early stages. It is still a very early grade 1 ovarian cancer. As a matter of fact, we were not looking for it. It just happened that we were lucky to catch it when we did. It is so low that it could have been ignored if it was just CT scan that was used. So you are saying my daughter will not die or have her womb damaged? Her mother asked fearfully. After a long silence followed the doctor's report. No, she will not die, not from this cancer. And her womb, ovaries, and fallopian tubes will all be saved, Dr. Eddie answered. So what do we do? Her father asked. Well, I will make arrangements with a gynecologist, an oncologist, and the rest of the medical team she will need. And the first thing we will do is book her for a surgery so we can determine if she will need some chemo or not. The first step in treating most ovarian cancers is surgery to remove and stage the cancer. Debulking is also done as needed because fallopian tube and primary peritoneal cancers have the same staging system as ovarian cancers. They are also included in this session. For grade 1 tumors, most women don't need any treatment after surgery. Women who want to be able to have children after treatment might be given the option of having an initial surgery that removes only the ovary containing the cancer along with the fallopian tube on the same side. When this has been accomplished, we can know what further steps to take for preventive measures. Dr. Eddie indicated them. Like I said, we were very lucky. So we will ride on that luck to the very last. She will be fine. I will ensure she has the best in her medical team. And he raised his hand, anticipating his friend's next line of concern. I will take care of the surgery expenses. After the surgery, we will know what is further needed. Pamela's mother fell on her knees as she cried out her gratitude, while her husband bent his head, lost for words. After a long silence with only her quiet sobbing breaking through, they were all calm enough to talk. Dr. Eden left almost close to midnight, after refusing to spend the night like he does whenever her father returns from the hospital after a surgery. But his excuse was that he needed to go and get ready for a surgery he scheduled first thing in the morning. The family sat together after Dr. Edie left, lost for words. Vivian broke the silence, though, when she came up with the suggestion that the money meant for her trip should be diverted to Pamela's treatment expenses. But nobody would have that, especially Pamela. Uncle Eddie has taken care of the bulk expenses, and I still have a little savings from my work with the Igwe family, and I believe that no further treatment will be required after the surgery. Why would you even suggest that at all? She blasted her sister angrily. Why won't I? Vivian retorted. Is my education more important than your life? It was me who worked hard to get the scholarship this year. If it means missing it this year for you to leave, then how is that a problem? I will always get it again when I want. Look at you, Miss Brilliant. You think you are the only brilliant person vying for it? Pamela replied. As they made to continue their banter, their father cleared his throat, silencing them immediately with that simple action. He looked at all of them, one after the other, from his wife to his 4 daughters seated around him. He felt complete and accomplished, even though his first 2 daughters seemed to be arguing, but he knows how much they love each other, and seeing how far they were willing to go for themselves, he knew that even if death comes knocking tomorrow, he would die fulfilled. Because the most important things that every human should have as a basic, his family has it in. He knows the sacrifice his daughters had to make when he became incapacitated, especially his first, who had to grow up faster than she should. A young girl who almost single-handedly saw herself through university. If not that this his friend came much later and lent his much-needed support. He had been lying down for this many years with one thought paramount in his mind. What has he done in the past to deserve these treasures he was blessed with? Their love, unwavering faith, and support had been what helped him to pull through the most excruciating experience of his life, and he will remain an eternally grateful man for these immeasurable blessings. He looked up at them and smiled, his love shining through and enveloping them. I am still your father, your provider, and your protector, even though I may be lying down here incapacitated, but I'm still the one who should worry about your life. So, my loves, leave that to me, okay? Vivian, you will travel as planned, and Pamela will receive every treatment she needs to beat this disease. Is that okay? Yes, Papa, they chorused. I am proud of you all, and I know that you are yet to show the fullness of your greatness. He smiled as he looked at them again. They all laughed as they tried to outtalk each other in their excitement, cancer forgotten for the meantime. Pamela was booked for surgery a week after. She went to her school first to work out her deferment for one school calendar year. It was easy when she presented her medical results and surgery bookings. Her lecturers promised to send her each semester material, and she can ask them any questions she has online. She doesn't need to miss out on the whole year. All she needs to do is come in and write her exams if she can, so she can graduate with her set. It was such an unexpected news, but she was very glad and grateful to her HOD for such a decision. When she was done with her school, she asked her mom, who was with her, if they can go see Mrs. Igwe, because her mom had insisted on coming with her as Vivian was very busy with the preparations for her trip the week after her surgery. Her mom jumped on the idea because it would give her an opportunity to personally meet this kind woman. When they got to the house, her mom was shocked to see how the staff welcomed her daughter, that she owned the place. She sat down after Pamela made the introduction, and they were asked to wait for their madam to come. Refreshments were brought, while Pamela went to the kitchen to have discussion with some of the staff she had missed. But when she came back inside, she didn't want to go upstairs because she doesn't know how busy Mrs. Igwe is, and she wasn't aware that Udoka was still at home. After a few minutes, Pamela screamed as she was lifted from her chair and twirled around. When she was put down, she saw Udoka looking well and quite handsome, smiling sheepishly at her. If not that you are way older than me, I would have slapped you now, Pamela threatened, happy to see him all healed, standing strong on his 2 feet. Pamela made introductions again, and her mom looked funny at the young man, looking at him as if she knew him. But quickly she recovered herself. She smiled in reply to his greeting and sat back to watch the friendship between her daughter and the young man. She didn't know what to make of it, but she decided to keep her thought to herself for now. After about 30 minutes, Mrs. Igwe bustled in, all smiles and joy, as she made a beeline for Pamela, not even noticing her son or the person sitting beside her. After they had hugged for the longest minute, she disengaged and turned Pamela around as if to make sure she was looking healthy. When she was satisfied, she told her she looked tired and a bit slimmer. I hope you have not been working from home, because I told you to come immediately you are in need of money. After all, you begged me not to send you any money unless you called, and I have respected that decision. But how come I have not received any call from you? Does it mean you still have your salary? Pamela laughed and apologized, saying she had been so busy, and that's why she came today with her mom to see her. Mrs. Igwe immediately turned at the mention of mom and realized that she had completely ignored her in her excitement. She had truly missed this young lady, like she had become a part of her. So she turned to greet the woman who birthed her angel and froze as she looked at the face, also staring at her in complete shock. Stella, Auntie Pauline, they both chorused at the same time as they hugged each other, tears flowing down their cheeks, each finding it difficult to believe what was happening at that moment. Pamela and Joker sat back equally shocked at the scene before them. After a long moment, they finally disengaged. The years washed away as they remembered when it all started. Mrs. Igwe gently sat the older woman down and knelt beside her, clasping her hand, and all she could say was, Auntie Pauline, I can't believe it is you. I can't believe I'll see you again. Her face looking as though she was that frightened teenage girl with a belly bigger than her frame. Her mind went back to those days when she looked forward to when the kind auntie would return from work with her snacks. And when she was almost due, the kind auntie asked her one day if she wanted to come and stay with her because she doesn't like how unkempt and emaciated she always looked. Stella had initially been lying to her that she was staying with her mom's sister on the other street. But the kind auntie had questioned her one day and eventually found out that she was sleeping in the open all this while. Aunt Pauline had not been happy with her, but had immediately taken her in and started buying the needed baby things she could afford. She was registered in the nearby hospital for the remaining months, and that was how she and her baby had been saved from uncertainty. A succor coming from a lady who was obviously trying to make ends meet on her own. After Aunt Pauline got sick and was taken by her family, Mrs. Igwe discovered that she had an admission, which she must have forfeited because the deadline came around the time she gave birth. So the money she used in paying for her emergency C-section must have been the money she saved for her school. When she found out, she had cried like an orphan, mostly because she doesn't even know if she will ever get to see the woman again. But God being so kind, here she was. She has been granted her most fervent desire. Here is the angel who gave her life, her ambition, and dreams to a pregnant teenager and her child who were complete strangers to her. She didn't believe in miracles, but this one alone was enough to change her heart. And Mrs. Iwe continued to ponder how small this world really is. Who would have thought that the girl she saw and loved immediately was her Aunt Pauline's daughter? Who in this world would have imagined it? She had often wondered at her connection to Pamela, but had attributed it to one of the mysteries of life and had left it at that. She stood up as Aunt Pauline asked her a question. Please repeat what you just said. I didn't get it, she pleaded, as she sat down between Pamela and her mom. Pamela's mom repeated her question. What happened to you after I went to the village with my brothers? Because I came back about 8 months later when I got a little better, scared of what would happen when my rent expires. So I came back 2 months before it did to renew it, but was shocked to be told you left. I tried to find out what happened, but the landlord told me you simply went out one day and never returned. Rain had spoiled most of the things we left behind because the apartment had been rented to another person. So I sold what I could and went back to stay with my brother so I can recover fully. And I met my husband and got married from there. But I had always wondered what happened to my Stella. Mrs. Igwe wiped her eyes with the tissue Pamela gave her and told her story. 2 months after you left, the landlord came to me with a quick notice that your rent has expired the day after you left. He just left me there out of pity. Pamela's mom shook her head, shocked at the cruelty of man. I didn't know you still had months left. So I went to St. Jude's orphanage at Railway Road. Do you remember that motherless baby home we used to take Udoka's clothes to? Yes, I remember, Pamela's mother answered. I went there with the intention to drop him off, as he would fare better with them than with me alone. But Sister Anne saw me, and that was how I was saved. She went on to tell in detail how she got to where she was at that time, of her marriage that didn't last because of the death of her husband, and everything else she could remember. Pamela also told her of her health and the surgery planned. By the time they were done telling their stories, it was past dinner time. She pleaded that they spend the night so they all can live together in the morning after breakfast, because she wants to meet her husband and all her children. She will not have it any other way. She also insisted that if need be, she can arrange for Pamela to be flown out for surgery. But Pamela's mom told her to self-pedal until she hears from Dr. Eddie. So the arrangement was that she would go with them and speak with Dr. Eddie. Hey people! So this is where episode 4 ends. I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. Episode 5 will be dropping very, very soon as you can think. So please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so. And I would love to hear from you. What has been your thought on this story so far? Your commendations, your observations, your criticism, whatever it is, I am here to listen to it all. So do well to get back to me and let me hear of your opinion. Bye.